The Story Grows. I'm Brad Patton. Today we welcome Modern Life is War frontman Jeffrey Eaton to the podcast. Modern Life is War released Life on the Moon back on September 5th with Deathwish and Iodine recordings. Jeff and I spend this conversation talking about Life on the Moon, diving into the band's musical shift, the themes and lyrical ideas behind certain songs, and the visual aesthetic of the album. Modern Life is War is on tour for the rest of September, heading through Furnace Fest, and then over in Europe for the month of October. So make sure you see the band if they're coming to a city near you. Thanks so much for checking out this episode of As the Story Grows. If you're a new listener to the podcast, welcome. Thanks for checking us out. You can find links in our show notes or at asthestorygrows.com for our Discord server, our mailing list, and our Patreon page. And if you like what you hear, please subscribe to the podcast on your podcast platform of choice. Enjoy today's conversation with Jeff Eaton from Modern Life is War. I want to kind of dive in and focus on this new record. This is really kind of a subversive record for what you would think a Modern Life is War record. Like, whatever expectation you have going into it, this is not it. Was there a conversation about the creative process when you started writing this record?
Yeah, there has been for quite a long time, actually. Our drummer Luke, he joined the band like I don't know how many years he's been in it now. I should know exactly. He's been in it about 8 years or something like that. So he's been in the band a long time. And I remember, like, I think it was the first show he played with us in Atlanta. And it was a great show. It was a fest. We played right before Judge, and I think right after Foundation or Criminal Instinct or one of those great Atlanta bands. And it was a really great show. But I remember talking to him on the plane that many years ago, like about this record and like how I wanted to do something just more instrumentally eclectic and more stylistically eclectic. And so clearly back then, you know, we weren't started on it in any kind of way, but we did do Tribulation Work Song series, which, you know, kind of got into some different territory, and that was kind of like a good primer warm up for it. And then, so that's, I guess, there was a conversation about it. I could go on for a long time on that question because it got really interesting, you know, like, I'll say this, the synthesis of the record was kind of a joke because there's, if you listen to the record, you know, there's the transition. I want to make sure I'm talking about the right songs here. There's a transition from the third song to the fourth song. The third song is There's a Telephone That Never Stops Ringing. And then the fourth song is Empty Shoes. Yeah. And so when it goes into that, like that little switch that it does, going from like that really heavy outro to like an ambient soundscape thing, Bo Becker, our guitar player, he did that in a demo. Like, we made a demo, just like a very simple basement demo of Telephone is what we call that song now, of course, just to shorten it a little bit. Yeah. So we made a basement demo of Telephone, and then when he shared that demo with the band, he just kind of, as a goof, cut off the end like that and went into an ambient soundscape. And then there was like, I think 2 minutes of just ambient noise. And I was like, that's it. That's the concept, you know, like that is what I want to do. I want to like make those really quick turns and do a bunch of different stylistic things. But I felt like that, what he felt was like a joke. I was like, that's like the blueprint for what I want to do on the record. Now the process of like getting from that point to getting the record done was very, very difficult, like within the band, because it was just a lot of pushing and pulling and a lot of different methods that we hadn't necessarily utilized before. And so it was a pretty interesting process.
Yeah. And I like the way the album is crafted because it feels crafted as an album. Like there's this kind of ramp up to I think it's You Look Like the Morning. Like everything kind of slowly ramps up, and then that like is like the peak of the album. And so in a musical landscape that is so streaming focused and short bits and clips, to be intentional about like, the record process, did that feel, I don't know, at any point was there any kind of pushback on that? Or because you're a band that comes from the hardcore scene, was it always about the album and the whole package?
I think everyone in the band is an album person.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe has something to do with the era that we grew up in. We grew up buying tapes when we were really young, and then you'd get that tape and you only had 7 tapes in your life, so you're just flipping them and playing those things. And then we got into CDs, like in high school, late 90s punk records on CD and discographies of older bands on CD. And again, with your like CD book in your car, you'd flip your CD book, and those albums, I think, just that's how we think about important music, or that's how we take in music, kind of. So, and then of course we all got into vinyl, when we got really deep into, punk and hardcore shows and that. So I think have just always been album focused people. Mm-hmm. The music was tracked and recorded quite a long time before I got the vocals done. Mm-hmm. And so I really had a lot of time to think about sequence of the songs. And at one point I, sort of pitched a sequence and decided that that's what it was going to be, and, got the band to kind of okay that. And so I had the full piece of music start to finish, really determined before I started tracking vocals, or in some cases even, I didn't have a lot of lyrics done and I already knew which song is coming next. Yeah. And so that was another way that I think the album focus really came to be. And it was kind of, for me, it was kind of frustrating to even release singles for this album.
Yeah.
We released Johnny Gone first, and I think a lot of people were just like, wait, what is this? And I would just be like, when you hear the whole album, it'll totally make sense to you, but like, I can see how out of context, maybe it wouldn't.
Yeah.
And then we released Jackie O No, and that was, I think people kind of felt the same, it was kind of like a tenuous response, which I understood. But then really once the album came out, I just got so many messages from people that, what they're listening to it on repeat, and that they liked the way it flowed and that they understood it and things like that. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, if you come from Fever Hunting, which is, over a decade ago, and then to this record, it is this like shock of just like, is this the same band? Which I like, because it's like, okay, they took a big creative swing, and I think it paid off really well.
Yeah, I kind of felt like that was necessary for our survival as a band. Yeah. Just because, things move on quickly. And like, I think that, young, rightfully so, very young people kind of run shit in punk and hardcore. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's not really like I'm 44 now. And so, yeah, I think that it is the rightful business of kids in their, teens and 20s and, maybe into their 30s to be pushing the creative bounds, making shit happen, defining the sound. Mm-hmm. They're the tip of the spear with all of this, and we're not anymore. No. in a way. But the way that I felt like we could flip that and basically to remain a relevant band, like I did want to do something that was just like, what the fuck? Like I wanted people to say, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
And maybe even take us as a new band. Maybe you didn't connect to what we were doing before, and maybe you connect to this now, or maybe you are someone who likes to put together all the pieces of like a band's entire discography. But yeah, certainly I wanted to take a big risk because I do want the band to thrive and survive and be relevant, but more so I wanted to take a big risk because I think it is more potentially rewarding for everyone involved.
Yeah.
So like to me, it's like if you look at albums, putting out an album as like an offering to your community, then I wanted to make I wanted to take the biggest risk to make the best potential offering to that community. So, but that is tough sometimes because when you take a big risk, people will be very critical of it, and then that I'm sensitive, so that'll hurt my feelings.
Outside of a handful of songs, which I kind of got the gist of, lyrically, there's a lot of, I don't know, metaphors or poetry on this record. What were things inspiring you when you were writing?
Gosh, so many things. I will try to talk about the lyrics without going on tangents that are too long-winded. So let me know if I do. A lot of it was just super real life things, like very, very, very real life things. I'll give an example. So the first song, On the Moon, is the second song on the album, and in first song, On the Moon, it starts out, Dear Moon, let's follow that Cadillac, Yazoo, Mississippi plates in the back. And that line is because I was sitting in a cafe with my friend Desmond, and I was sort of at a point where like I really needed to start hammering out some songs for the album. It was waiting on me, and I was feeling a little blocked. I didn't quite know what to do for a bunch of the songs, and it just hadn't all taken shape yet. And we were sitting in like the window of the coffee shop looking out on the street in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And this badass Cadillac, like gold Cadillac with Yazoo, Mississippi plates, like rolled up. And we were both like, whoa, like it just looked like a cool car. Yeah. And there was smoke pouring out of the window, and there was people in the back seat. And I started writing about that. I was like, and I just switched it from like my buddy who I was with, Desmond, to Moon. And so it's Dear Moon, let's follow that Cadillac, basically. And then since there was so much time kind of spent, like calendar time spent working on the album and working on the lyrics, like I took a trip to Yazoo, Mississippi, just to go there, just because I didn't want to write about something that I didn't know about or hadn't, it was someplace I hadn't been. Yeah. So like I just kind of took that trip. So I just took that trip solo, and ended up finding out when I got down there that there was a big fire in that town, like at the turn of the century, and it was blamed on a witch. Like the town blamed it on a witch, and then there's a witch's grave outside of town that's supposedly haunted, and there's a lot of lore around the town concerning that. And so I went to the witch's grave, left a copy of the lyrics to First Song on the Moon with the grave, and I think that symbolism of like the witch, or like the crucified woman, or the like that type of imagery is something that really was already playing in the album. Yeah. And so like once I got going on like living the lyrics, they really just all started to come out. Yeah. Most of the references that seem really specific or obscure in some way, like poetic, yes, but they're pretty much everything mentioned sort of like has a story.
Okay.
So it's all like really concrete in a way, as well as poetic, I guess.
On a specific song, I wanted to ask you about Bloodsport, kind of a two-sided question. You referenced, 2024. So the first side of that question, do you worry about writing a song that is kind of captured in a specific time frame? And then that line at the end about like, if they want war, we'll meet them. I don't know. Do you ever think about that lyric, especially kind of as things have taken place over the last, 2 weeks, and just go, I don't know, if, not regret, but like, oh shit, like a prophetic announcement, and things are so much closer to that now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know the timing of Bloodsport coming out and the event, we'll call it. Yeah, that's an interesting one. I'm glad you brought it up. That's really interesting. Yeah, I mean, that song is sort of it's about a few things, it's kind of about, in one way, it's just like I grew up with songs like that are like anti-racism songs.
Yeah.
And I always loved those songs and always felt that in my heart. And I think that those bands helped me just reinforce that. And like, you know what I mean? Like that was like in the scenes that I was in like the late 90s and early 2000s, like that was the code. Like there was no racism, there was no boneheads allowed at shows. Like there was no. And so I thought it would just be cool to have this really like clear as day lyric about that and just be like, hey, we're anti-racist. Like the world is getting so strange. I was hoping that we were evolving as a culture to a more or a less racist society, but then you kind of find out that that's not at all the case. And it for me, I think I just wanted to make that stance and declaration like very clear. And also it's kind of a song about the album's somewhat of a spiritual album, I guess, for me personally. I don't necessarily need everyone to feel like that about it, but like for me it is. And so it's also kind of about spiritual bypassing when it comes to political action or when it comes to defending your fellow humans, and just basically saying that like, while you may have spiritual beliefs and have your own practices and idea of what justice is in this world or in life and death, there is certainly a place where like no matter what your beliefs are, if you see certain types of injustices unfolding right in front of your eyes, you should take some sort of action and you should defend those people in some way. You know what I mean? It's not all up to you, but it's all up to all of us. And so even I guess something as simple as putting that song out for me was like, hey, I want to make sure that people know exactly where I stand on that.
Yeah, that line in that song, there's no such thing as a racist, Fred. Like the first time I heard it, I was like, fucking right. Like, yeah. yeah. Well, and I was like, I like that line. I was hoping that it was catchy for people. Yeah. And that people like wanted to adopt it and shout it out because I liked it. I was excited like when it kind of came up in the song. Yeah. And yeah, basically, I am a person that is fired up about like this regime that we're under. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think that the hatred and the bullshit that, is going on is acceptable. And I want to be one of the people that's standing up and, saying that basically I am a dissenter. And if that's now illegal, then I'm doing illegal shit under this regime because that's what I'm going to be doing. That's what I've been doing for a long time. And I'm not going to stop now. The other song that really, or line that stood out to me is Talismanic at the end there. I don't have to be what you want me to be. Nothing is permanent. I carry you with me, which kind of resonated with me. It reminded me of my dad who passed away and kind of the weirdness of our relationship before he died. And I'm like, what is that song about? And what does it mean to you?
Well, Talismanic is the last song on the record, and I really wrote it as that in a way. Like, I wanted to say everything all in that song.
Yeah.
So, I think what you were feeling regarding someone you lost and that lyric and the way it ends is pretty spot on. I mean, it's about relationships ending and that being okay, and that not necessarily being like a flaw of one party or the other. And just sort of, it's okay to move on. You know, it's okay to change. It's okay to move on. It's okay to lose relationships. It's okay to let someone go. You know, it's okay to leave someone. It's, so Talismanic is just what you carry with you from that person. So it's like, I don't know what your relationship was with your father in the last few years, but I imagine there is something about it that you would want to, there's a shining, great part of that relationship that you probably want to carry with you. Yeah. And certainly for people that we've lost in our lives as a band, because we've lost a bunch of people. But for people that we've lost, some of those relationships were very difficult, Yeah. Not always clearly even friends at the end of life or whatever, and then you have that kind of pain of how that person died and what your status with them was at the time of their death and things like that. And I guess I'm just kind of saying that there is a more important thing than that. And that is that you did come together in life and that there is some good in that you can still carry with you.
Can you talk to me about the album art, the inspiration, and kind of who did it?
Yeah, I was working on the art for years, basically in tandem with the lyrics and the vocals. It took me a couple years, and I made a pretty big visual collection of, I guess, paintings, sculptures, collage, mixed media pieces, letters, found objects, photographs that were from our personal collection. And so I put that together, and at a certain point felt like I had the body of material that I wanted to use for that. And then our friend Brian Santostefano from Chicago came down to Iowa to photograph my collage work, my sculptures, my transparencies, and all these different mediums I was sort of experimenting with. And he came on 2 separate weekends, took photos of the artwork, took photos at my studio in Marshalltown, which is a space that was donated to me by a couple really good friends. So then I had the photographs, and those images went to a graphic designer who put together the final layout. Yep. All of the imagery to me is just as personal as the lyrics. I mean, everything is there's ties to everything. Everything is very personal and specific, and all kind of tells a story. I don't know, if you have any specific questions about it, love to answer them.
No, I haven't got my full physical copy yet, so I haven't even seen the full book.
Okay, yeah. Yeah. Well, it's I'm not sure where to start. I mean, the person on the cover, the face on the cover is a close friend of ours, who took her own life many years ago. Actually, not recently, but many years ago. And I found that photo of her with her eyes closed, and she was in Halloween makeup. She had her face painted white, and it was a Halloween thing. And that is part of a series of photos. There's, I guess, 3 main photos there's 2 people in the photos, and there's 3 photos, and that's one of them, the one with her eyes closed. The cover image was kind of contentious within the band. Like, it was difficult to decide which image essentially were to go in that center circle on the cover of the album. I really wanted one image, and it ended up being decided that wasn't the one, and we went with the photo of Nicole with her eyes closed, which I also do love. The image itself on the cover of the album is a photograph of a transparency on an overhead projector on a wall in the art studio. So if you see the hole in the head, that hole is a hole in the wall in my art studio.
Nice.
There's a lot of imagery of a young woman with a mohawk, and that is a photo that was taken by my friend Michelle Busby, and that was her friend Emily, who's also passed. And Michelle took that photo of Emily in high school in a photography class, and it was something that she showed me while I was working on the album, and it was just a very beautiful, touching portrait, and I immediately knew that it was a part of the album somehow. Michelle and her husband Aaron are the ones who sort of donated me some space to use for an art studio while I was making all these things. So I don't know if that whole thing I just tried to explain makes sense, but the album art was a huge in-depth process that was sort of the first time I had ever attacked a visual art project like that. Like, that was like my first real foray into putting together a true collection or a true body of work like that. And very excited about how it came out.
That's awesome.
And then just to add to the lore of the artwork for the album a little bit, after we had all the images that I felt should make up the layout, I had all these materials laying around, and I wanted to do something with them in like a more cohesive way. So I made a book that's like a handmade lyric book. And I sent that to the record label in the mail as like a companion piece for the digital imagery. And the box arrived ripped open, and the book is missing. Oh, shit. And all I have a record of that is a video that I took of like a little flip through before I put it in the mail. And the still images from that flip through video actually do appear in the layout of the record. Okay. So there's remnants of that book like digitally rendered into the layout of the record. So yeah, there's a lot to talk about there. I'm long-winded. I'll cut off there. Well, I guess I am just excited to have more conversations like this with people about the album, because there is so much to talk about and so much I'd like to talk about concerning just all the little details of the whole album and how everything came to be. So I appreciate you taking the time and like having some great questions for me. And I'm excited to finally have the album out. It was a very long process. Yep. The whole band persevered through years of sort of frustrating and strange situations and soldiered on to get it out. And it felt like a victory when we got it out, but we also felt, I think, a little bit tired and a little bit deflated because we had just gone through so much in those years. And so now we're hopefully at a moment where we start getting that feedback from people that really energizes us and sort of lifts us up and makes us excited to go play these shows and perform these songs for people and, you know, see what people think of the record, like love, hate it, or otherwise. The other thing is we've been practicing the last 3 weekends, you know, and like integrating the new songs into the set has been really fun. We're going out and playing on this US 8-day run we're doing. We're playing the full Witness album.
Nice.
But we're not doing it in order. So we're like integrating tracks from the new album into that set. And it all feels really good and cohesive together. Like it does feel like we've grown as a band via the new album. And we're just a little bit more of like an interesting and powerful band now that we have that new like breadth of material to work into our sets. So it feels good to integrate everything and get the album out and get out and play these shows.